Hey everybody, Jason Bermas here with another video blog, and today I want to talk about Jared Lee Loughner and the events at Tucson, Arizona. Now first off, I want to say that this is a horrific and tragic event, and that my heart goes out to the victims and their family members, especially the parents of the 9-year-old girl who was shot to death. And I can only hope and pray that the Congresswoman will have a stealthy and healthy recovery in which she's able to walk, talk, and think again the same way she was able to do so before she was shot through the head. Now before I get into the actual event and what I think happened, I first want to say that the media reaction has been absolutely deplorable and on a vicious attack of anybody that challenges the establishment in any way, shape, or form. The left is blaming the right is blaming the left. Atheists have been blamed. Anarchists have been blamed. And now the mantra of conspiracy theory is also out there. And this is especially upsetting from people like Glenn Beck and Rush Limbaugh, who at first were blamed for this event and now are saying no, it was 9/11 truth all along. And although it is true that Loughner did view films like Loose Change and Zeitgeist, so have hundreds of millions of other people throughout the world. And for them to focus on that is, again, disgusting. So let's get into Loughner himself. Loughner has all the earmarkings of a paranoid schizophrenic. Just look at his YouTube postings. First of all, he said that the population was under mass mind control and a new currency needed to be put into place. And that this mind control was being achieved through literacy and grammar, yet all of his postings were illiterate and without grammar. His teachers in college said that they thought he had Tourette's syndrome and that he was more than off, staring in other directions, saying things inappropriately, laughing out loud when it was not warranted whatsoever. So let's take a look at the day itself. Now that morning, he had actually been pulled over by a police officer for allegedly running a red light, but then let go, and this occurred at 7:30 a.m. Now, later on, it said that he took a cab instead of driving himself to the grocery store, the Safeway, and shooting these people. In fact, initially, they said that there was a second suspect in the matter. However, the police have cleared this man as the cab driver who drove him there, but not released any of his information. So a lot of people have said, Jason, why aren't you talking about the mind control aspect of this? Well, we're going to talk about it right now. Before we get into this case, I would like to assure the audience that mind control does indeed exist and has been in U.S. programs for decades. The first public ones that we know about are Operation Artichoke, which was later turned into MKUltra by CIA officials. You see, they started experimenting with drugs and hypnosis and realized that the mainline literature about these matters was just completely wrong. And they used these programs to try to build mind-controlled assassins. This is a reality. This came out in Senate intelligence hearings. Please look them up. In fact, many of the MKUltra documents were actually declassified to a large extent, but then suddenly many of them were destroyed, never to be seen in the public arena again. In fact, Bill Clinton during the 90s had to admit to some of these experiments and radiation on human beings. You see, they would put electrodes in people's brains, they would radiate them, they would drug them with LSD and other hallucinogenics. And that's another aspect that doesn't seem to be taken on by the media. Although his lone friend, Greg Ulcer, who admittedly had not seen the man in over 2 years and was in tears when he had to see the picture of this psychopath on the cover of newspapers looking like a complete lunatic. He then began to discuss Loughner's use of a drug called salvia, which is a very powerful hallucinogenic, which causes a disassociation with reality. And folks, I assure you, this is one of the most powerful drugs out there. I have no idea how it is street legal when other drugs like LSD and of course mushrooms are not. This is on par or greater than those drugs. And it seemed as though he was smoking it every day in the 2 years prior when Ulcer cut ties with him. So what's the bottom line in this? Well, the bottom line is The media and our government now, Barack Obama going to Arizona, are using this as a tool to try to curb the First and Second Amendment. Yes, to try to take away our free speech and our guns. And we can't let that happen. Is this a mind control operation? Really only time will tell. Although it is extremely suspicious that Loughner himself requested the lawyer of Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber, to represent him after he had been taken down and put into a courtroom. Now, why is this important? Well, Kaczynski himself, unknowingly, as far as we know, took part in some of these MKUltra experiments that took place in Berkeley, California, at the university there. Now, what MKUltra would do is they would use universities, doctors' offices, and other fronts to actually carry out these programs. So once again, I urge people to use discernment when looking at this matter, to remain vigilant in the evidence that is presented. We already know that the sheriffs had been warned about him several times, and that they are sealing his records that should be in the public arena. So once again, this is a horrid tragedy. We need to keep our eyes open. 9/11 truth is not to blame. Loose change is not to blame. Jared Lee Loughner is to blame. If you want to check out more of my stuff, go to facebook.com/JasonBermas, or go get my films over at Infowars.com, or watch them all in high quality over at PrisonPlanet.tv. Thank you all.